So obviously, this is your first film in 5 years. Your last film, Dating Amber, you described as semi-autobiographical. So before finding Eternity, were you consciously looking as far as possible in the other direction?
Um, kind of, and not really. I think with Dating Amber was such a lovely film to make, and I think I really loved making an audience laugh and cry, and just doing something that is in that space. Like, I mean, Dating Amber for me is a romantic comedy, albeit unusual. So I was really excited to jump into that world again. And I think even though Eternity is set in the afterlife, there was a real universal truth in it. Like the idea of kind of exploring what is love and the idea of love just felt really instinctual. And so yeah, so that's what excited me the most. But then being able to take this story and create my own afterlife around it and build my own world was just like a filmmaker's dream come true. So yeah,
Yeah. So obviously, Patrick's original screenplay was on the blacklist.
yeah,
You now have a co-writing
yeah.
credit. So how did the film evolve when you came on board, or was it really just sort of pushing his ideas like further?
I mean, it was great. I came on board about 4 years ago, so it was even before the blacklist version. And Pat, like I was so inspired by Pat's original draft, and just that idea of a woman having to choose between first great love and last great love. It just felt so one of those ideas that was felt like it should have existed already. And it really inspired me, and I created the world around that. And Pat himself, kind of, we worked together and collaborated on a second draft, and then they let me go away and gave me the blessing to kind of bring it further and create my own draft and do a rewrite, specifically of the third act and the Luke character, and but always with kind of Pat's blessing, and he kind of goaded me to take it as far as I could. He's an extraordinary collaborator. So yeah, it was a really lovely kind of process over those years, just teasing out kind of, I think, the potential of his script and bringing it to its full kind of fruition.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I just want to talk a little bit more about that sort of
yeah,
instinctual reaction that you had to the
yeah,
screenplay and sort of because I read that you read the screenplay and then you immediately had like loads of ideas about what the junction
yeah,
would look like. So
yeah.
I need to know, is this close to what your personal idea of the afterlife would look like? Is that why it was so easy
I mean,
to
again, I've said it before, but I've always dreamed of building my own kind of afterlife in a film. Like my favorite films are Matter of Life and Death, The Wizard of Oz, kind of things where you get to create your own world. So I've always had this idea, and the idea of it being a brutalist structure, which is my favorite type of architecture, and just an amalgamation of all my favorite buildings, from the Moriami Library in Toronto to the Barbican in London. So it did come fully formed. The idea, the visual of this film came to me very quickly as I read that very first draft. And I mean, I don't know what's next. I'm very much so hedging my bets on if there is or isn't an afterlife, but I would be very happy if it looked like this. I think I would be happy to stay in this junction forever. Again, I love even though it is otherworldly, I do love the familiarity of this afterlife. That it's quite chaotic like life is. It's bureaucratic like life is, and there's a lot of red tape like there is in life. And I think that all feels very lovely and familiar. And I think there's a comfort in that I quite like. So yeah, but I would be very happy if the afterlife did look like this. I just don't know if it will.
yeah.
Yeah,
So obviously I don't know the budget for this film, but I can safely
yeah,
assume it's lower budget than, it would take to realize something like this
yeah,
typically. So were there any challenges in terms of bringing
yeah.
that to life? Yeah.
Totally, yeah. I mean, I think it was a much bigger budget than I'd had before, but obviously much lower than you would imagine for this kind of film. And every penny was pinched. We really approached it like an indie film. We approached it with that kind of spirit of ingenuity and collaboration. I think we had a plan for the junction, and then obviously there's things you have to change to make it work within the budget and the space we were given in the studio. And then there was lots of really ingenious things we did, like the archive tunnel, which is one of my favorite sets. We ended up stripping that and reusing it as a chaos tunnel, as the train tunnel, and just minimizing every inch of our sets to make sure that the film had the scale and scope that we wanted. And I think we very much so had to kind of rewrite the script with some of those things in mind. Specifically, the final act, which has a big chase through the archive tunnels, that kind of came from budgetary constraints we had, but I actually think it made the film so much better. I think it gave it an urgency that I don't think was in the previous draft. So I really think there's a virtue in limitations that that made the film much better than it would have been had we had 100 million quid from another studio. I think the film is better for those constraints.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I
Yeah.
like that third act. It felt weirdly propulsive, edge
Yeah.
of your seat for a rom-com,
Yeah.
which I really liked.
Yeah.
Movie magic in the
Thanks.
end.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you want a big rom-com chase at the end, and this feels like the ultimate version of that. And it was really fun to create and have Lizzie kind of visit all these different memories. Just was a lovely way of exploring that character, and I think it like you said, it gave it a propulsion that maybe wasn't in the previous draft.
So obviously, in the press notes, you said that your dream has always been making a romantic comedy in the sort of the old screwball vein of
Yeah.
like Preston Sturges, Billy Wilder. So why were your three leads the perfect modern stars for you? Who could sort of tap into that
Yeah.
that old school feeling?
I mean, I think there's that holy grail of an actor that very few people can do, which is really tap into the emotion and make you cry 1 minute and laugh the next. And I think it's very hard and it's very rare. And I had a sense that Lizzie and Miles would be able to do that. There was kind of hints of comedy in their work before that was extraordinary. So it was really exciting to have them explore a side of themselves they hadn't done before. And I was just so honored that they wanted to do the script. And I think they both have an old school charm to them. I think Miles has a real Al Brooks feel to him, whereas Lizzie really feels like the spiritual child of Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon. There's just something about them that I felt fit the period of that the film is kind of set in. And they are extraordinary. They really are hilarious. I think people won't expect them to be as funny as they are. Callum, I met him for a coffee in London, and I had seen Green Room and some of his early work. I hadn't seen Boys in the Boat at that point, and he just was extraordinary. His insight into the character and the layers he wanted to bring to Luke that were really vital to me. So he was a fully three-dimensional kind of choice for Joan was brilliant. And again, he has that old school charm. He feels like a matinee idol from a different period. So yeah, they were just the perfect casting for these roles. It's really hard to imagine anybody else in this. And I think better than what was really surprising was how incredible they were together. I think their dynamics together was, how they fed off each other was really exciting to see. I think the day we had them all on set for the first time was so exciting. Everybody in the crew just had like goosebumps because we knew we had something special with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Dave Vine and John Early are
Genius.
both also absolutely
Genius.
perfectly cast.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you're tapping into that sort of old high concept rom-com trope of the guardian angels who are sort of guiding the protagonist. I mean, that must have been sort of deliberate as someone who just loves that.
Yeah,
that old
yeah.
school
I mean,
genre.
those roles are very much so written like the. I guess I kind of, they were written to be like the Greek chorus. They kind of give the rules. They are there to guide the characters, and they were really funny on the page. I think, but I think John and Devine just immediately elevated them and gave them an agency that maybe wasn't fully in the script. And yeah, they are so funny. They're so funny on set. They're so funny to be around, and they steal so many scenes together. And they gave a kind of an emotionality to those characters that I don't think I was expecting. Like their own little kind of will they, won't they, kind of that kind of bubbles in the background. I think is so lovely. But yeah, I mean, they're just again a joy to work with, and I just want to do a spin-off with them because they are just hilarious.
I was thinking, like, 10, 20 years ago, this would have been like a spin-off sitcom.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it could still be. It started as a joke on set. I kept saying, because I just loved being with them, that, it'd be great if they were a spin-off. But then I started thinking of it and kind of working out what that would be and taking it really seriously and getting really invested in what a TV spin-off with those characters could look like. So now I'm quite serious about it. I think it would be brilliant. I think my favorite TV show of all time is MASH, which obviously spun off from MASH. So the idea of doing my own MASH is quite quite lovely. So yeah, so maybe someday that will happen.
I will tell all my friends to buy 10 tickets opening weekend to make sure we
Yeah,
can make it to
just to
the
get the spin off.
Oscars. So going back to the sort of the core love triangle, I mean, I think it's effective because it's very rare to like all three of the
Yeah,
people involved in it, even though they are all frustrating at times to
yeah.
be with. So was it a challenge when writing to sort of fine tune that? Because obviously in the back of your mind, there is that version where one of them is more of a villain than another, which you avoid.
Yeah, that was really important to myself and my co-writer Pat that that neither man is bad. That they're both, they're both flawed, and Lizzie's character Joan is flawed. That the choice she has is between two great loves who are both really good people, and I think no matter what happens, you have to allow one of them to be heartbroken at the end for it to kind of really work and have stakes. And so we really worked to make sure we avoided that trope that one of them is slightly a cad or slightly villainous. And I think again, that comes down to the performances of Miles and Callum. They're just so charming and funny, and they had no ego in exposing the insecurities and flaws of their characters, that you do feel for both men and you do get really invested in both men. And I love the idea that the audience will be split, that you have your team Luke's and your team Larry's. And I think that's great. I kind of want people to question whether she did or didn't make the right choice, whatever that is, at the end of the film. And I don't think that matters, so long as the audience are always team Joan. So as long as they always root for Lizzie, I think that's great. So yeah, that was really, really important to us. That both men feel like really valid choices, and that you wouldn't begrudge her choosing either one. And I think that's right. I think you wouldn't begrudge her going with the life she was robbed of, or staying with the man she's grown old with. So yeah, and it's just credit to those brilliant actors of how invested I think the audience are.
And also, my favorite scene is just the two of them, after arguing for so long,
Yeah,
just getting drunk together. It's such a sweet scene.
it's great, and that like it was so much fun. I think their chemistry together. I always said the chemistry between the men is just as important as the chemistry between Lizzie and the two guys. And obviously, there's that rivalry they have, but at the end of the day, they have one big thing in common, which is they both dearly love this woman. And it was really nice to get to that buddy comedy moment with them, where they kind of bond over that love. And it's just such a sweet, sweet scene. And also, it was just so fun to shoot those guys just getting drunk in those various positions and points, and having those rambling conversations was a really fun day on set. And they really relished that opportunity as well.
So I've been told I've got a minute left, so I'm going to end with a big question, which
Okay.
is, of course, you're inspired by classic rom-coms. What is Eternity bringing back that modern rom-coms have lost, do you think?
I mean, for me, I think what I love is rom-coms that aren't afraid to have really big laughs as well as big emotion, and that can have weighty themes, but that they wear those themes with a lightness of touch that I think we are maybe slightly missing in cinema. I think like Sturges and Wilder and all those greats, they weren't afraid to go into serious dark places, but it never felt weighty. And I hope that's what Eternity does. It's certainly what we try to do. But yeah, big laughs and big emotion, I think, is what I'm hoping to bring back.